Hey, so the Secure by Design pledge is pushing software companies towards better security practices. But what does it mean for everybody, especially everyday developers? Stay tuned as Peter breaks it down for you. If you don't know, Peter is the Vice President of Developer Relations and Community at Sonar, so he really knows this stuff. He has over 25 years of experience. Really excited to dive into this topic. You don't want to miss it? Check it out. Hey, if your app is slow, it could be worse than an error. It could be frustrating. And one thing I've learned over my 25 years in the industry is that frustrated users don't last long. But since slow performance isn't sudden, it's hard for standard error monitoring tools to catch. That's why I think you should check out Bugsnag, an all-in-one observability solution that has a way to automatically watch for these issues, real user monitoring. It detects and reports real user performance data in real time so you can quickly identify lags. Plus, you can get the context of where the lags are and how to fix them. Don't rely on frustrated user feedback. Find out for yourself. Go to bugsnag.com and try it for free. No credit card required. Check it out and let me know what you think. Hey, Peter, welcome to the Guild.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Glad to be here.
All right, awesome to have you. I guess right off the bat, I'm just curious to know, you're Vice President of Developer Relations and Community at Sonar. What does that mean? I assume you have your pulse on the community then, what's going on in DevOps in general?
Yeah. So I look after the developer relations team, the speakers that go around the world and talk about clean code and software quality. And then we have a community, about around 8 million engineers, pardon me, in the community that love to talk about software quality and look after the code at their companies. Yeah.
Awesome. So like I said, you have over 25 years of experience. You know, DevOps has been around for a while. And I know there was a push years ago for DevSecOps. So just curious to get your thoughts on where we stand now. Do most developers know security is an important part of DevOps, or is that still something you need to make a distinction with DevSecOps?
Yeah. Hey, that's a great question. It depends. Like all good answers, I'll say it depends. But yeah, larger companies, I think there's a big push, shift and left, getting that security all the way down to the developer. But developers under a lot of pressure to go faster, deliver more features to production, and unfortunately, security is usually an afterthought. But if you really think about security shifting totally left, you're looking at code, right? So engineers are the foundation. They're writing that code, so they should have that security mindset in place. Yeah, a lot of great tools are coming out too. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I love tooling, so we're definitely going to touch into that a little bit. Quick question though. Does it seem like we throw more and more at developers? Is that just the world we live in now? It's like, it seems like they need to be not only development experts, security experts, performance experts, testing experts. It just seems like there's more and more things that are being thrown on them.
Yeah, exactly. It's everything rolls downhill, right? And goes all the way to the developer. Right? And I won't. I'll keep the language PC, but yeah, yeah, it feels like that a lot, right? It's just more and more pressure. I used to work at a large computer manufacturing company here in Central Texas. I won't say the name. You probably your listeners probably guess. But yeah, we had huge QA teams, separate test teams, separate security teams. A lot of that's all gone now. A lot of it is all pushed to the developer. You have that cross sectional, folks that have come through security into development, DevOps, right, into development. So you're kind of melding things together, but still, yeah, you have to know a lot of things other than just writing code. It starts to get overwhelming a little bit, I think, for a lot of developers.
Absolutely. So how do you overcome that overwhelm? How much security does a developer need to know? Do they need to be like a cybersecurity expert? Do they need certifications? Is just, you still have maybe a high level security group maybe, or like how much security, I guess, is involved in their day-to-day activities?
Yeah, I think the two biggest things they need to worry about is definitely the code. Start with the code, scan your code, look for vulnerabilities, hotspots, those type of things. Write good defensive code, right? All of those good practices. It's hard, right? Junior developers are coming on board, but they have a lot of, they're just looking to solve the problems, right? Oh, it works, but there's probably 50% more code, or maybe not that much, that you have to do security wise, right? Checking all your inputs, checking all your outputs, making sure you're not tainting your data as it flows down through the application, right? But if I think at the end of the day, if the developer really focuses on the code, they're doing a good job. And then the other side of that is kind of post a little bit of runtime scanning, static analysis, and then runtime analysis, right? And so they should really understand those things. They should understand their borderlines, their where their code stops and other code starts, right? And protecting those inputs. I think that's the biggest thing, right? Data coming in is where you're going to get your most issues, right?
Absolutely. So, we talked a little bit about DevSecOps. It's been around for a while. Shift left has been a concept that's been around for a while. So, why are there still initiatives going on like Secure by Design pledge? Why has there been more traction, I guess, in the security area? Is this just more putting more emphasis on security now more than ever?
Yeah, I don't know. It's probably business leaders. I think three things big business leaders want, right? They want features, high valued features, and they want those quick, and they want them secure, right? And they want to keep technical debt low. And security is a big issue. You don't want CIOs, CTOs, CEOs do not want to show up on the nightly news. I know we really don't maybe not watch nightly news anymore, but they don't want to show up on hacker news, right? For sure. So security is a big concern. You know, losing your PII data. I don't know. I just got another letter from some company that they've been breached, right? Again. And yeah, I think it's a huge concern. You lose trust with the public. So I think security is top of mind for everything, right? Yes, deliver good features, good products, but they got to be secure. Can't be hacked, or the world just won't use your products. Yeah. So I think that's where the big emphasis comes from.
Absolutely. So, as you said, it starts with code. What does someone need to be aware of? Is it as they're writing code, are there ways they can be prompted, hey, you could write this more securely? Or is it more like the open source packages they may be consuming, not knowing there may be known vulnerabilities in those particular packages?
Yeah, it's both. It's definitely the code first, right? And great tools like Sonar, I'm a little bit biased, of course, but your static analyzers, right, will sit there in your browser. A little bit like Grammarly for the general public as you're writing English, help you write better English. We have a linter that helps you write better code, kind of watches your patterns as you write the code. And there's we have a really good set of rules, security rules that scan your code as you're writing. But that's not enough, right? You still have to analyze it in your CI/CD processes because you have cross-file issues, right? A lot of linters just look at one file at a time, but you need that whole view of your code as data gets passed through function to function, making sure along those lines it doesn't get tainted or disrupted. But yeah, it really starts at the code in the solid patterns that you write. There's known vulnerabilities in memory overflows, those type of things, pointers. But even in all the way down to JavaScript, right? We look at you're not able to manually manipulate memory, but there's still vulnerabilities all over the place. Regular expressions are a big issue. I didn't know this before I came to Sonar that, yeah, you can have security issues in your regular expressions. So, which kind of blew my mind, right? They're like little compilers in the regular expressions, right? That kind of execute code. You got to be very, very careful. Yeah. So, and then in your third party packages, right? CVEs are great, and you have versions, databases that look at, hey, Log4j is a great example, right? You'll look at a specific version there, and okay, you're using that in your project. We see the version number. It's linked to a bunch of CVs, but it's very static. We kind of had an answer to that called Deep SAST. So we'll dive into open source projects, modules projects, and actually scan that code. So we know the known vulnerabilities, but then we can also see the path of your code. So when Log4j happened, you might have that version of Log4j in your application, but the code path through there might not even hit it. So if you're a large company that has 5,000 developers and you're sitting back and you're going, how do I attack this? With Sonar and Deeper SAST, you can kind of prioritize. Okay, this application, the code is affected because of the module that's there, but our code path doesn't touch it, right? So let's lower that a little bit on our hit list, but the ones above that we can hit quicker. Yeah, we'll address those quicker. So I think open source is a big issue. It's huge open source is used everywhere. I forget the stats on it, but it's mind blowing on how powerful it is. But at the same time, it is open source and it's developed by folks on the internets that, you don't know the quality and you kind of trust things. Conversely on that, you do have a huge user base of the code. So we are pounding on it constantly, but it's something you have to be very, very mindful. It's so easy to pull in a package from package managers and say, oh yeah, hey, I need something to hash my passwords, right? Oh, here's a package. Let me use that, right? Well, you can have injections in there all the time. You can, it's a big issue, right? You need to be scanning that code. You need not only to have your CV lookup databases, but you also need to be scanning that code, right?
Absolutely. So, as a developer, it's not good to be context switching. Oh, now I'm doing security. Now I'm doing, I'm just trying to come up with some features for this. How do you make it so that it integrates with their environment or their IDE maybe? So I guess first I should ask, I assume everyone knows what Sonar is, but maybe you can just give a little bit of idea of what is Sonar and then maybe what you're doing, maybe to plug into the developers ecosystem, I don't know, I assume you're doing this to avoid this context switching that a lot of developers have to go through.
Yeah. So Sonar, we focus on clean code, as we call it, code quality. But it's a static code analyzer. So we basically take your code, put it into an abstract syntax tree, and then we run a bunch of rules against it, looking for vulnerabilities, hotspots, and we do the basic things of consistency. So, two spaces or tabs, right, and semicolons here, kind of the standard stuff. But then we do things like I was talking about earlier. We call it DBD, which is data bug detection. And that's where we follow your data through some of its code paths, looking for doing taint analysis is probably the more technical term. And that's all wonderful and great. But if it's not, like you said, if it's an afterthought for the developer, it becomes painful. And that loop, that internal loop and outer loop becomes wider, right? So yeah, I think we try with Sonar Lint, which is our linter sits in your browser, your IDE. Yeah, sits in your IDE and watches as you code, helps you code better. You could do quick fixes and those type of things. But another thing is very, very powerful that we have is we call it learn as you code. So our descriptions of our rules are very in depth. We'll even point you out to more references. So I was talking about the regular expression issues, which I didn't know. And I started learning about those from our rules and dug into those as I was coding right in my browser, right? And so having it right in your browser, I keep saying browser, in your IDE, there are, you can run VS Code in your browser, which is super cool. Okay. Don't want to digress, but keep staying in your IDE closest to that inner loop is where you want to be. But you also need that backup, that second check, right? In your CI/CD process. I argue for quality first, then functionality. So, you can have a well-functioning piece of software, but it could be a poor quality, right? An analogy I give is you could build a house, right? But if it's made of, paper, sure, there's doors that open and close. You have a roof, but as soon as it rains, that thing's going to fall down, right? So the quality is very poor, but it functions well, right? So I think we should really, really focus on quality first, then functionality, right? And that helps by pushing all the way into your IDE, and it should be integrated into your thought process as you're developing, right? And not an afterthought, not something you bolt on at the end, right? And I think when we first started shifting left, that's what it was, right? It was like, oh, we're doing the same thing, but let's just make the developer do it, right? And and we all called that shift left, right? And we said, yep, go and let's get rid of all these other folks on the team. We don't need them anymore, right? And that was not good. But I think now we're maturing a little bit and understanding. I think developers coming along, and to your point earlier, there's a lot of knowledge they have to get. And so they're integrating that into their SDLC. But without tools, without like Sonar Lint and others, right, it becomes very difficult. It becomes overwhelming.
100%. So I like how you said quality first. I come from a testing background, a QA background. Maybe I was always in dysfunctional organizations. I assume when someone has a feature that's going to go out the door, that's going to make them money, that's going to be number one priority. is there still do you still have to convince companies that, hey, not only it also needs to be quality because it's not a sunk cost, because security, if something goes wrong, can hurt your brand value. You get hacked, you probably get hit by certain laws nowadays and fines. So how do you, is that a message that's still going on, like that you have to take into consideration security?
Yeah, I think less so the engineer, right? I think as engineers, we get that, right? We want, and I think we lean a little bit on that, right? And I think that's always been the battle between the business and engineers, right? We want to write good quality, well-written code, maintainable, reliable code. And the business is over there cracking the whip. Yeah, that's great. Go faster, 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 right? And we all hold up the technical debt flag. And we say, no, you're going to, you're going to increase your technical debt. It's going to be harder down the line to go faster, right? And unfortunately, the business leaders go, yep, that's great, but it doesn't register, right? I think they think of software as, it's very abstract, right? They say, well, it's just code, just change it. It's not that hard, just move the button here, right? But they don't understand it's an iceberg, right? They only see the tip of it, but underneath is massive amounts of plumbing. It's a lot like a house. Forgive me, I'll go back to the house, right? If you ever built a house, you look at a model home, you go, great, that's the one I want. You sit down, you design it, they start building, and then you show up halfway through and you do a walkthrough and you're like, actually, can we move the kitchen just a little bit over here? Can we move the sink just a little bit? Right. In your brain, you just go, you just move it. What's the big deal? But you don't realize between those walls, you have plumbing, you have wiring, you have structures, right? That can't just be moved that easily. It's the same with code, right? It's, even though it's abstract, there's plumbing underneath that is tightly, sometimes unfortunately tightly integrated together, and decoupling those things take time. And it generates technical debt. And but I think business leaders don't really understand that issue of technical debt, right? It's until 3 months down the line when you say, hey, they go, hey, build this. Why it's going to take so long? What's going to take? Well, because you forced us to go so fast 2 months ago that we incurred all this technical debt. Now, when we build this feature, we have to back up some design that we did, right? Because we went fast and didn't think ahead as much, and we have to rewind that. So I think I mostly talk to business leaders and technical leaders, right? I love my fellow technical leadership, right? But you battle that line on top, right? And sometimes you get a little bit of amnesia, and you forget when you were coding yourself of how technical debt can creep in, and you want to please the business because that's how you get your bonuses, right? But I think technical debt is a big issue. It's that three-legged stool, speed, cost, and functionality, right? If you want to go faster, one of those are gonna suffer, right? It's really hard to have all three. So I think taking a balanced look at those three, and in the long run, you'll be way better off. But yeah, I think to answer your question, I think developers get it. So I don't have to talk to them as much. Other than quality first, right? Functionality second. I think the business leaders is where we have to bring on board a little bit more and help them understand that in the long term, this is best for their business. Yeah.
Love it. So I guess this almost sounds, this works best for like greenfield and new functions. How do developers handle I've worked in insurance companies, healthcare insurance. Literally, the software is 30, sometimes actually one was 40 years old. So how do you handle tech debt then? Like, where do you know then when to focus in on your security efforts? Obviously, when they're coding, that's great, but maybe the code already exists. How do you know where to even begin then? Like, we have tech debt. Where do we start with security to make sure we even are secure?
Yeah. This is a big issue. So I help mentor folks that are going from other careers into software engineering, right? And I always tell them, you're not going to you're going to learn the code, but you kind of learn the code in an isolated area, right? It's all new projects. You understand the code, but guess what? You're going to show up at a company and you're going to be dropped into a 15-year-old code base, right? So you have to understand how to read code and all those type of things. So we take approach at Sonar called clean as you code, and it happens all the time. I was just at a conference. We were developers in Germany, and I had this conversation probably 10 times, right? So you turn on a static analyzer and boom, you just get thousands of issues. And like a good engineer, you turn that shit off. Excuse me. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on here, but you turn that off, right? But that's the wrong approach. So yeah, how do you approach it? And so we kind of think about it. We looked at the half-life of code, and it's about 3.33 years. And we looked at a bunch of open source code. We looked at our own code, and we said a line of code is going to stay for about 3.33 years in your code base. And so you start out day one, everything is dirty, and then you start cleaning and only focusing on the new code and code that you're refactoring, right? Making sure that is solid, clean. And then your Sub 1 security issues, Sub 2 security issues, really start focusing on those. And as you're fixing your code and you're pushing into production over time, about 2 to 3 years, you're at 30, 40%. At the 5-year mark, you've cleaned about 60% of your code base. And then you always get the question, well, what about the remaining 40? And I say, leave sleeping dogs lie, right? It might not be maintainable, right? But it's reliable and secure. If it wasn't, you would have issues in it, right? So let it stay for a while and focus on your code as you go. And I think that's a great approach. I think a bad approach is what I see a lot is you turn that on, and of course all the senior engineers and go, I don't want to do this. I don't want to sit here and fix these things. Okay, engineering manager says, great. All right, get the new guy, get the junior guy, have him go. He's going to focus on cleaning up all this code. Well, that's no offense to you guys starting out, right? But that's the worst person to do it, right? They just don't have the experience and knowledge to handle it, right? And so I really believe in this clean as you code. Start with new code, refactored code. Make sure that's clean. And over time, you will touch your whole code base in about 5 years, 4 to 5 years.
Not great advice. So I can't believe we're 20 minutes into this or more, and we still haven't talked about AI. So how does AI change the game then with security? Does it make it easier, or does it still make it where you can't just give a junior programmer some AI now and say, go at it? Like, how does that work nowadays?
Yeah, I think there's two sides of that coin, right? I think with Gen AI, it's wonderful, right? But it can't do jobs yet, but it can do tasks, and it can generate code for you. But it's also based on, the quality of data coming in that these models are being trained on is the quality that's going to come out. And I think that, you have to look at it from the 3 levels of, let's say, of a junior, mid-level, senior engineer. That junior engineer, unfortunately, a lot of our Gen AI right now is maybe, it's accelerating Stack Overflow, copying and paste. It's a lot easier to do that, right? And a junior developer might not understand what exactly that code is doing. So I think it's very, very risky there. You can introduce a lot of security issues for sure. So if you're using Gen AI at start right now, you should be doing static code analysis 100%, right? You need that other backup, a tool that has your back. As you go higher as someone like yourself or I, right? We've seen a lot of code. It's very helpful for me. I can use Gen AI. I can write code. I can modify it really quick, put it into my application, and we're good to go. So, it's a little bit of a double-edged sword there on the code generation. But it's going to get better. It's going to get better and better. On the other side of that is these tools, though. AI in general is a pattern matching tool, right? Predictive pattern matching tool, and I think that's awesome for security, right? It's going to be able to identify issues way better than we can as humans. It's going to take a while. It's not there yet, of course, right? We still need these wonderful PhD folks in static analysis, right, that have spent their life really studying these things. But I think AI is going to come in and help them better the industry, and it's going to be able to watch our code. It's going to be able to scan it, looking for patterns and predict things, right? So I think it's going to be a big help. Of course, we're not there yet. I think we're going to get a big big push. I hate to say hype because it's a little more than hype, but we're going to, it's all wonderful and great and everybody's going, this is awesome. I think it's going to dip a little bit when everybody goes, that's not that great, but then it'll come back, right? If you look back in the early 2000s with the internet, we had online shopping, right? We had books online. We had delivery services, right? We had all these things. And, but everybody was worried, right? didn't work that great. No one wanted to give a credit card out. Connection speeds were real slow. We didn't have these amazing computers in our pockets, right? And so we had this big hype. Remember, you did all the Super Bowl ads and all the, just throwing money at startups. And you're seeing a little bit of that now. And then that went away a little bit to what, 09, 10, 11. The smartphone was a big contributor to that, internet speeds. And now, I mean, shoot, I don't think there's a day, perhaps maybe an hour, that a Amazon box doesn't show up my front door, or, my daughter ordered, DoorDash the other day, right? A guy shows up and she's like, I'm hungry. And I'm like, what world do we live in, right? It's so much part of our life. And so I think that's AI in general is what we're going to look at. But no one can predict it. My prediction for AI is we know it's not going away. And it will progress faster than we know, right? We'll be shocked if you just look from ChatGPT 3, 3.5 to 4.0, right? The leaps there are huge. So what's going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years? It's going to be crazy. And it's very, very hard to tell where it will be, but it will be a lot better than we expect. And we'll use it in different ways than we can even think about it now, right?
Absolutely. Great stuff, Peter. So also curious to know, we talked a lot about shift left. What about shift right? I've heard about this for a long time. How much do developers have to worry now when back in my day, everything was on bare metal. You had everything in your control. Now you're using third-party services in the wild. You're using, cloud environments. Are there other security concerns now that people need to be aware of when they shift right? And how can you even prevent that?
Well, that's a great question. I don't know if I have a great answer for you, but I'll try. We can maybe we can waddle through it a little bit ourselves, but yeah, I think it's a big issue, right? I think security professionals will tell you anytime anything is taken out of your control, right? Security wants to, lock everything, close up, lock every door, close every window, tighten it all up, right? But that's hard to scale. So when we're going to the cloud and we're using all these services, there's third-party services. You got to have to be very, very careful, right? If you're not setting up your virtual networks, how they talk across services to each other, even just not very smart things like putting your keys into code bases, pushing that up in the GitHub. I just saw a guy on YouTube showed how to do a search through GitHub to find OpenAI private keys, right? Even in private repos, it was kind of scary, right? So I think it's a big concern, right? And we have to be very, very careful. I'm not one for policies and procedures. I'm probably anti those, but you have to put some rigor in your practice and in your SDLCs. I think it's an issue, right? I think it's and it's not going away, right? The answer is no, air gap it, bring everything back in. That'll still, because for legal reasons and medical and all those type of things, will still be an issue, right? But companies want to go fast and do more with less, and that means using third-party services. And you have to put moats around your technologies and protect things. So yeah, it's a big risk. It's a big risk.
Okay, Peter, before we go, is there one piece of actionable advice you can give to someone to help them with their DevOps security efforts? And what's the best way to find, contact you, or learn more about Sonar?
Yeah, I think you DevOps folks out there, I love you to death. Help your engineering teams. Help them understand that they need to be static analyzing their code, right? You guys are the gatekeepers, right? You think about functional testing, right? Unit testing, integration testing. There's not a good DevOps engineer that I know that doesn't say, hey, don't worry about unit testing in your CI/CD process. We'll be okay, right? It's a must-have. And I think you have to think about quality, right? Quality first. So integrate a static code analyzer into your CI/CD processes. Help the engineering teams help write good quality code. And then also to the engineer, get a static analyzer, use it in your IDE. It'll help you write better code. And that is the foundation that then going forward you can build on, right? So yeah, that would be my advice. Static analyze your code. Think about quality first, then functionality. And life will be perfect. There's no problems there.
Remember, latency is the silent killer of your app. Don't rely on frustrated user feedback. You can know exactly what's happening and how to fix it with Bug Snag from SmartBear. See it for yourself Go to bugsnag.com and try it for free. No credit card required. Check it out. Let me know what you think. And for links of everything of value we covered in this DevOps Toolchain show, head on over to testguild.com/P158. So that's it for this episode of the DevOps Toolchain show. I'm Joe. My mission is to help you succeed creating end-to-end full-stack DevOps toolchain awesomeness. As always, test everything and keep the good. Cheers. Hey, thank you for tuning in. It's incredible to connect with close to 400,000 followers across all our platforms and over 40,000 email subscribers who are at the forefront of automation, testing, and DevOps. If you haven't yet, join our vibrant community at testguild.com, where you become part of our elite circle driving innovation in software testing and automation. And if you're a tool provider or have a service looking to empower our guild with solutions that elevate skills and tackle real-world challenges, we're excited to collaborate. Visit testguild.info to explore how we can create transformative experiences together. Let's push the boundaries of what we can achieve.
The Test Guild Automation Testing Podcast. With lutes and lyres the bards began their song. A tune of knowledge, a melody of code. Through the air it spread like wildfire through the land, guiding testers, showing the secrets to behold.